welcome to Life Talk for June 18th, 2019. I'm Mark Crutcher, and I'm joined by the usual suspects, my assistant Rennie, or Renee, as she might also be known.
Yes, hello.
And my daughter Sheila.
Hi.
How are y'all?
Good.
Good.
Good. We got a lot to get to, so let's...
You forgot Ernie.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ernie. We forgot to introduce Ernie, the frilled-necked Republican, our office mascot, kind of, our Laugh Talk mascot. There he is.
Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure he was introduced because the Republicans are always up to something, so he's always represented.
And he gets his feelings hurt when he's told me a couple of times after the show that I let him down and didn't introduce him.
Yeah.
There he is. Anyway, something's come up again that we've gone over many times before, but it's very important because, and this is the issue of when life begins, whether it's at conception or at fertilization. And you hear a lot of people, particularly pro-life people, and they don't do it out of any malice or anything, they do it because they hadn't thought about it, that say life begins at conception.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This leaves the abortion industry a wide open path.
Absolutely.
And factually it's not true.
Right.
Life begins at fertilization.
Yes.
And people say, well, you're talking about, you're splitting hairs here.
No.
No, you're
No,
not.
it's two different things.
It's two different things,
Yeah.
totally.
Right.
There's a gap in time between when the egg is fertilized and it attaches to the womb.
That's right. When it travels down.
And that's the moment of conception.
Right.
And the abortion industry will use that gap. And they have many times in the past.
Yeah, and they use it for stuff like the morning after pill and
IUDs.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. It's birth control.
Right.
Birth control is an abortion because the egg and the sperm are fertilized.
Right.
And
If birth control prevents the fertilization,
Yes.
then it's birth control.
Yeah.
But if it can act after fertilization, but before conception, it's an abortion.
Makes it terminate the implantation.
Right.
And once, fertilization happens, that is a new human being.
Right.
New DNA that, keeps on replicating and
Right.
growing, and that is a new human being.
And the abortion industry relies on this, and they will exploit it, and we cannot allow them to do that. So
Right.
we need to get all our people on the same
page here.
page of the hymnal here and using the same technology.
Yes.
Life begins at fertilization.
Right.
And for proof of that, I would argue that sometimes a fertilized egg does not implant and it sloughs off. But it was still a new human life, even if it never implanted. So conception never took place.
Right.
And the abortion industry tries to rely on this argument that until conception takes place, the woman isn't pregnant.
Yeah.
Well, pregnancy is not the issue. The issue is there a human life there? And there is.
Exactly.
So I want to really encourage people, and I'm not trying to be critical here, but this is a difference that the abortion industry will exploit. I want to encourage people to start making sure that you use the right terminology. Life begins at fertilization, not at conception.
And I think a good example is like scientists that look for life out in space. They would consider a cell,
Life.
life.
Right.
And so, and they've said, we're looking for life in water or, life on Mars. And if they find a cell, that is life. Why doesn't that standard apply to human beings here on
Well,
Earth?
the fact is it does. So you have again, when fertilization occurs, the life has begun. Whether it implants or not is beside the point. It is a human life.
Yes.
Anyway, you guys had a couple of things you want to go over, and I want to get something here in a little bit. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I have two articles that I'd like to just bring to people's attention. I know that if you follow pro-life news, you understand what's going on, especially with Teen Vogue and how they try to overstep their boundaries hugely.
They don't try to. They do.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Exactly.
They're following in the steps of Planned Parenthood and sex education.
Oh
and
gosh,
stuff
I'm
like
sure
that.
Planned Parenthood gives
Yeah.
them tons of money, but
Probably.
they had an article that came out.
This is Teen Vogue
This
magazine.
is Teen Vogue magazine that having an abortion at 16 years old is at your right, regardless of your parents' beliefs. And they go on to explain how you can do it, where you can go, what
The mechanism.
what the mechanism is of doing this. And it's just I mean, Teen Vogue teaches children how to have anal sex, masturbation.
Right.
I mean, they just exploit children like no other. It is insane.
And plus, teaching them how to get abortion without parental consent goes against a lot of parental notification laws.
Yeah,
and
but
so
they
they're
told them how to circumvent
yeah, and so they're basically teaching them how to break laws so that they can get abortion.
Yeah, I know it. And you know, when you're a teenager, your hormones for a female is just going 90 to nothing. You don't think right. You're not in a place to make this kind of a decision. Right. And you need spiritual guidance, you need help, you need people to talk to you, to walk you through this.
And not exploit you.
And
Well,
not
you need
Teen
people
Vogue.
to talk to you that care about you.
That
Yeah,
care,
exactly,
yes.
not exploit.
And let me tell you, an abortion it's a very dangerous procedure. It is, and a parent, if they consent to their child having an abortion, needs to know what's going on. This child can die, you know.
Well, not only that,
it's
but
just-
even if everything goes right,
It's still
Yeah.
killing.
you got a
Right.
dead baby at the end.
Yes, you do.
And so, and that's something that never goes away.
No.
It's there from now on.
Yeah.
And, but to have these magazines like that have tremendous influence over
Yeah.
young people is obscene. And you know, we had to have a discussion, you and I did the other day, because we're talking to a group that is ministering to teens and even preteens,
Right.
kids as young as 10 and 11 years
Yes.
old. And we're looking at maybe having some sort of connection with them,
Right.
so that we can do what we've talked about here before, which is have a bigger influence on younger people.
Right.
And the pro-life movement, I think, has done a pretty poor job of that.
Yeah.
And this group was agreeing with us.
Yeah.
That we recruit these kids in, but then we don't train them and equip them. And the subject came up of can we really talk to kids 10 and 11 years old about abortion?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the reality is we'd better.
We need to.
Because if we don't, they're going to.
We need to in middle school. We need to start, because I don't know how many homes actually talk about the abortion issue and what's going on, but I can guarantee you kids, especially in high school, are talking about it. Unfortunately, they are having sex, these girls, and they are confused. They don't know what they want to do.
Well, you had that situation with your daughter talking about not her personal situation,
yeah.
but her friends.
Yeah, two, as a matter of fact. And you know, it's just hard because they need a reliable source to talk to.
Well, there was a thing on the internet the other day. I'm not going to say who it was, but this pro-life leader who was speaking to her son about abortion and, you know, having what an abortion procedure is. He was young, and she was, you know, telling him about using the tube to suction up the baby and stuff. And people are like, oh, she should not be talking to her son about this. It's too young. He's too young. Well, number one, if parents don't talk to their kids about this, then Teen Vogue, stuff on the TV, Planned Parenthood, influencers like Miley Cyrus and her abortion cake are going to get a hold of them first.
That's right.
Number two, kids are not stupid. They know what's going on. Their brains are developing. They're smarter than people like to give them credit for. They are not in this little bubble. They are observant. They know what is going on. Reach out to them on, you know, one-to-one.
Well, one thing that older people have to realize is, and again, you and I were talking about this just yesterday, what 10 and 11-year-old kids are exposed to today is totally different than what 10 and 11-year-old kids were exposed to
Exactly.
when I was 10 or 11.
Oh, yeah,
Or even
internet.
when you were 10 or 11.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just a short little testimony. When I started here 8.5 years ago, I was pro-life, but didn't pay much attention to the pro-life issue.
Right.
I just didn't. And when I started, I showed my son the abortion pictures. I talked to him about what it was to have an abortion, and he cried. When he looked at these pictures, he was at 12, 13 years old, and he was a little bit older, but he cried.
Yeah.
He could not understand that people do this,
But, you know, they may get upset and they may cry, but they can handle it. Give kids
A little
more
break.
Oh, he wants to fight.
more confidence than
Yeah.
we're giving them.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, growing up in the pro-life movement, I knew what was going on.
Yeah, but
That-
you know, I have a story about when you were a kid,
Yeah.
and it's kind of funny. One day, I don't remember how old you were. I think you were probably 5 or 6. And you were when we were at the old office, and we were there talking about abortion. And you said something about, well, Daddy, why don't y'all just call the police? And I said, because this is legal, Sheila. And of course, you got on your mighty high horse and put your hand on it. And your words were, you mean to tell me this is legal?
Yeah.
And that was what you said.
Yeah.
And we never picked up on prior to that that we just assumed you knew that it was legal, or we wouldn't be having this big debate here. But you didn't. So you never know what your kids are thinking or whatever, or who's influencing your kids unless you talk to them.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's just a reality.
And out of the mouths of babes, they know it's legal, or I mean, they recognize that it's murder.
Right.
So
Yep, that's right.
That's right.
Well, real quick, this really, this is extremely upsetting. A California school has 10-year-olds doing a condom race. Can you imagine coming home, your child coming home from school, your daughter coming home from school and saying,
10-year-old daughter.
"Hey, Mommy, guess what I did today? I had a condom relay race." This is Planned Parenthood putting this on. It's a group
my
called
goodness.
For Kids and Country. And again, Planned Parenthood, they're teaching gender identity to kindergartens, anal sex to third graders. I mean, it's just, and teaching them advice for the LGBT community. And
I'm not advocating anything here, but as I told you the other day, if my 3rd grader or my 10-year-old comes home and tells me some pervert at her school has talked to her about this stuff, I'm going to be at that school. Now, I may wind up in jail that night, but I'm going to be there as the father of that child. And she comes home and tells me, hey, guess what? I got this little award today because I was able to put a condom on a penis faster than anybody in my class. Isn't that great?
I mean, do they use
I'm gonna be there.
What do they use for this? Do they use bananas? Do they use
I don't know what they do. I don't want to know. It doesn't matter.
And see, this is the thing. This is exactly the last thing we talked about is kids learning this stuff early. These people are getting hold of your kids. Right. So if you're not talking to them about the truth about it, then they're just going to learn this crap and believe it.
Well, and if a teacher refuses, a Planned Parenthood employee will step in to do the training. Parents, if you live in California and Planned Parenthood's coming to your school and you are pro-life, I'd be going to the school, the ISD. I'd be talking to somebody because I wouldn't allow it.
You just need to be a decent human being.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you're
pull your kid out, forget that junk.
Listen, do not allow your children to be under the access of these perverts and degenerates from Planned Parenthood.
Yep.
They are sexual deviants.
Yes.
And you are a fool, complete fool, if you allow your children to be contacted by these people. No different. Listen, what you ought to do, if you knew that your children were going to be taught or interacting with people from Planned Parenthood, you ought to look at it as no different than if those kids were at the playground and some dirty old man comes up and starts talking to your kids about sex. It's the same exact thing. These people are deviants. They're perverts. Yep. They should not have no contact with children. Well, they shouldn't even have contact with adults.
Yeah. Well, an example is that y'all have talked about on previous Life Talks. There are books that Planned Parenthood puts out for children that have like graphic images that would be considered obscene.
Maybe
if
pornography.
It was exactly on TV, but yet school districts are bringing in these books supposedly for sex education.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
I used to bring up the point that some of these materials that we get from Planned Parenthood, if I were to take one of those books, like you're talking, It's Perfectly Normal or any of those others that they put out, if I were to take one of those books and go out here on the sidewalk in front of this building and some little 9 or 10-year-old girl walks by, and I said, "Hey, look at this."
Yeah.
The Denton police would be on me.
Yeah, he'd be arrested and thrown in
In
jail.
about 15 seconds, I'm going to be in the backseat
But
of a
it's
Denton
okay
police
for
car.
Planned Parenthood to do
Yeah.
it.
But if I'm a Planned Parenthood educator,
Yeah.
Representative.
then it's okay.
Yeah.
It's outrageous.
And I have some stories that kind of go along with this. It's okay for them to have free speech and, talk about whatever they want to. But when someone talks about the truth about abortion, we're the ones that get censored because it's not okay. It's inappropriate. And for instance, there is a hacker conference that goes on yearly.
Computer hackers.
Yeah, a computer hacker conference that goes on yearly, an annual event.
I didn't know this kind of garbage was. I mean, I'm so out of it. This makes no sense to me.
But it's hosted in Las Vegas. There was a U.S. politician, a Republican congressman, Will Hurd, who was scheduled to be a keynote speaker. Well, some of the Black Hat hacker group, contact him, invited him to be a speaker because of his strong background in computer science and internet security. Well, a lot of people in the hacker community raised a fuss and said that they were going to boycott the conference if they didn't drop him because of his Republican conservative views, his voting record on pro-life initiatives.
That should be a mute subject here. If this guy knows what he's doing and he knows that, he's a professional at hacking and he can protect the U.S. government or whatever, let him do his job.
Yeah.
Protect us.
Imagine for a moment. Let's just put this in another context. We would all agree that the vast majority, I think, of these hackers and these computer nerds are boys who are living in the basement of their mother's house. Some of them 40 years old.
Well, some of them.
Still living in the basement of their mother's house, right? That's the hacker community. So there's very few females, I would guess.
Yeah, it's a male dominated.
It's almost all males. What if they had a female speaker scheduled and somebody came along and said, wait a minute, most of these hackers are males. Yeah, she knows what she's doing, but because she's female, we're going to boycott if you let her be the speaker. We're going to throw her out. This country would melt down over that issue.
Completely.
But
Feminists would be up in arms
Oh, yeah.
over it.
But you can say, oh, he can be thrown out because he's pro-life,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
And their reasoning, they said that they misjudged the separation of technology and politics.
Yeah, good excuse.
Yeah, number one, they brought him in to talk about cybersecurity, which is a political thing. And so,
It's mind-boggling,
Yeah.
the level of idiocy that goes on in our culture.
and then this one is not in the United States, but in Germany. 2 German doctors were fined over abortion ads. The advertisements not only promoted abortion, but described how abortion is done.
These are abortionists.
Yeah, these are people that were advertising for abortion services.
Right.
They were fined the equivalent of U.S. money, $2,240 each. The Berlin District Court ruled that the ads may only promote abortion services, but not describe the procedure. So in other words,
In other words, the pro-aborts in Germany are just like the pro-aborts in America. We want you to do this, but we don't want you to know what it is.
Yeah, heaven forbid you tell people the truth about what it really is. You can promote abortion all you want, just don't tell people what's going on.
Right.
Yep, I know.
Makes it easier to.
It's like I've always said about the graphic pictures. The pro-aborts will say, well, your graphic pictures traumatize women who've had abortions. Well, okay, if you believe that's true, and I guess it would be true because there's a lot of women who've had abortions that then all of a sudden see the picture of what they've done and they go, oh, what did I do? So I'm sure it does traumatize a lot of women who've had abortions. If you're a pro-abort, though, if you're part of the abortion lobby or the abortion industry and you think this is a problem, then why don't you make it a standard rule in all your clinics that you show these women these pictures before they had the abortion.
Show them the procedure.
Show them the graphic pictures. This is what your fetus, baby's zygote, whatever you want to call it, is going to look like.
Yeah.
This is what it's going to look like at the end. That way, no woman has an abortion who would be horrified by it, and no woman is then subsequently horrified or traumatized
Afterwards.
by what she did. So just show them the pictures up front. Why wouldn't you do that?
The problem isn't the picture; it's the truth behind the picture.
That's what they're hiding.
Exactly.
That's what the abortion industry, and apparently in Germany they're doing the same thing, and it's a matter of law there, and it will be here too eventually.
Yeah.
Anyway, when we come back, we're going to be taking a time out here for robots here in a second. When we come back, I want to talk about this furor that's going on all over the United States over the Hyde Amendment, repealing the Hyde Amendment and public funding for abortion, taking money out of your pocketbook and out of Sheila's pocketbook and out of mine, and saying, you're pro-life, but you're going to be forced to pay for somebody else's abortion. You're going to have to buy an abortion for somebody else. This is outrageous. But anyway, as soon as we come back from robots, we will be talking about that subject. Anyway, let's go to robots right now.
In 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion nationwide. The decision is called Roe versus Wade, and those who defend it are known as robots. This is how they think.
I am a pastor, and if a woman has decided to get an abortion, it is not my place to get involved. It's just none of the church's business.
Years ago, a 28-year-old woman named Kitty Genovese was raped and stabbed to death outside her New York City apartment. Later, her neighbors told police that they heard her screaming for help, but they ignored it because it was none of their business and they did not want to get involved. Now, that ugly scenario is repeated thousands of times every day as children are slaughtered in American abortion clinics while the church looks the other way. Pastors who know abortion is murder say and do nothing for fear of offending someone. Pastors who will openly admit that abortion is wrong carefully avoid any discussion of why it's wrong. As a practical matter, the modern American church is opposed to abortion in the same way that Kitty Genovese's neighbors were opposed to her rape and murder. They didn't support it, but they weren't going to stop it. The bottom line is, when a man sees evil and does nothing, he gives that evil his tacit approval. So whatever excuse these cowards might come up with, the truth is that their biggest concerns are protecting their jobs and keeping the collection plates full. And if you think I'm wrong, ask yourself this. If a couple of thousand tithers were being murdered every day, do you think these guys would be saying that it's none of the church's business? And by the way, have you ever noticed that when we call on the nation's politicians to help us protect the unborn, they tell us that abortion is a religious issue and the government shouldn't be involved? And when we go to the church, they tell us it's a political issue and the church shouldn't get involved. It's a scam, and both groups have been using it for over 4 decades as a way to wash the blood of the unborn off their hands. Apparently, it's something they learned by reading about Pontius Pilate. We're back. As I said, we're seeing this big debate all over the country about repealing the Hyde Amendment. Mm-hmm. And all these Democrats, and by the way, let's take all the pretense off now. There used to be this argument about pro-life Democrats, and these people were moderates, and the Democratic Party now is owned lock, stock, and barrel by the abortion lobby. Mm-hmm. They're owned by them. So let's take all that pretense off the table. But anyway, these people that in the past have said, oh, I'm a moderate on abortion. I support a woman's right to choose. I certainly don't think that money should be taken out of pro-life taxpayers' pockets to use to pay for abortion. They're now all in. Mm-hmm. You're not even considered pro-choice anymore unless you support taking money out of taxpayers' pockets and using it to buy abortions. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the biggest offender here on this is Joe Biden. He has always tried to tell the lie, and he's been a pathological liar since day one, but he's always tried to tell a lie that he was a moderate on the abortion issue and he supported the Hyde Amendment and did not think taxpayer money should be used to pay for abortion. Now he's completely flopped because in 2019, you're not even considered pro-choice. And like I said a moment ago, you're not even considered pro-choice unless you support taxpayer funding of abortion. And let me tell you how far this has gone. A federal appeals court last week ruled, United States Court of Appeals ruled, that the Trump administration cannot prohibit teenagers, minors, who are here illegally, that they catch at the border, who want an abortion and have to have it paid for by the federal government. The Trump administration cannot prohibit that.
Yeah.
So now, not only are we buying abortions for other Americans,
Right.
we're buying abortions for people who are in the country illegally.
Yeah.
Minor children
Right.
who are in the country illegally, you and I must pay for their abortion. This is how far this thing has gone. And it is utterly preposterous.
Well, first of all, I don't like the government stealing my money through taxes in the first place. They waste
sure you don't.
they waste millions and trillions of dollars of money, including my own, and I do not support that.
Right.
Second, I sure as heck don't support having my money paying for people's abortions, paying for the killing of innocent children.
Right.
Well, and they're pushing this because of poor women that can't afford it, or colored people that can't afford it, and they feel like they're doing such a good. They're blessing them in a way, because they can't carry this baby to term, and they can't afford diapers, and they can't afford formula. And
You know what I would argue? I would argue that no federal funding of abortion for poor women supports those poor women, because it means their children are more protected than the children of rich women, right? Who can always get an abortion.
Yeah.
Even if they have to go out of the country to get one, they can always get one. So it's kind of a reverse discrimination. You're favoring the children of poor women by not paying to have them killed.
Yeah.
But let me point something else out. You mentioned that they're saying that they have to pay for women of color for their abortions, because not to is, first off, that's a racist argument to make anyway. But we know they're racist. We proved that with MAFA 21.
oh, definitely.
And this denies them and I heard one of the pro-abortion Democrats running for office the other day, Gillibrand or one of them, saying, look, if a woman has a constitutional right to an abortion, and if she can't afford one, then you're denying her that constitutional right, which is nonsense. I have the right, I mentioned it yesterday, I have the right to buy a Bugatti Veyron, right? One of the most expensive, if not the most expensive car in the world. I have a right to buy those, don't I?
Yeah.
I have a constitutional right to own property.
Right.
But they cost $1.2 million. I can't afford that.
Right.
So,
Should the government jump in and help you buy it, and
don't
pay for
I?
it?
Aren't I denied my constitutional right to own a Bugatti Veyron because I don't have the $1.2 million? So I think the government ought to pony up.
Well, first of all, abortion is not a constitutional right.
Well, that's the first problem.
Yes, that is I would say the biggest problem. We don't have a right to kill other people. Murder is illegal. Abortion is murder. So there is no constitutional right. And second, they're doing this to help eliminate undesirables. To them, poor people, to them, minorities.
Black people, Hispanics.
Yeah, they're undesirable people. They don't want them around. And so they're like, oh, hey, we'll help you. In reality, they just are helping eliminate them.
And anybody who believes that what you're saying is not true hasn't seen my Alpha 21
No,
yet.
no,
Because we proved beyond it. But let's go back to this deal of rights, okay? The Second Amendment guarantees us the right to own a gun, right?
Yes.
But guns can be expensive.
Right.
So what if somebody doesn't have the money to buy a gun?
Right.
Should the government then be forced to buy guns for them?
Oh, heavens, no.
Well, they should if you're going to say that them not having enough money denies them their constitutional right, therefore there's a government duty
Right.
to pay for that gun.
Yeah.
So, if I want an AR-15 and it costs, I don't know what they cost, $1,000, $1,500, and I can't afford it, do they have to buy one for me? Or here's one that would send the left, the godless left in America, this would send them into a complete tailspin. What if I'm the pastor of a church that's very poor? We're in a poor part of the world and we don't get many donations. I'm not even taking a salary. I'm having to work a second job just to support the church and so forth. and we need new Bibles, and we can't afford them. We have a constitutional right, free exercise of religion, but because our church is poor, we can't afford Bibles. Should the federal government step in and buy Bibles for us? It's the same concept.
Right.
It's exactly the same
That's right.
concept as buying abortion.
Yep.
But let me tell you something. I want you to imagine, y'all just imagine for a moment. The New York Times came out and revealed today, they found a little church in Mississippi or Alabama that was poor and couldn't afford Bibles. And so the Trump administration authorized $800 to buy Bibles or whatever for this church. This country, the left in this country, would have a complete meltdown
Absolutely.
today.
Yeah.
And yet they'll look right at you and say the fact that you're pro-life and you think abortion is murder, that's irrelevant. There's a woman out here that can't afford an abortion, you have to buy it for her.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
So hypocritical.
It's the height of hypocrisy.
Well, I mean, we're guaranteed the right to life, number one, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Property,
That,
yeah.
And that doesn't mean that the government's going to give you everything in order for that to be true.
Right, for that to achieve
Yeah.
that purpose, right.
Exactly.
Like I said, I have a constitutional right to buy that Bugatti Veyron that I'd love to have. But I don't have the $1.2 million. Renee,
What a
I want you to go out there and get a second job
Yeah.
and start paying into the government
Okay.
with the money you make from that second job so I can get that new Bugatti.
That's what it's like.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're saying.
Yeah.
It's astonishing.
Yes,
It goes,
But-
abortion goes hand in hand with socialism.
Well, Marxism, communism, all the isms,
Yeah.
all those things. The difference between socialism, communism, and Marxism is zero.
Yeah.
And we've got people out here running for office today that are saying, I'm a democratic socialist. We have fought wars against democratic socialists.
Or
That's
that
what the
are in
Nazis were.
office.
Huh?
Or that is in office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many people do you think know what USSR stands for?
Probably not many.
United Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. That's what that stood for. Nazis were not National Socialist. We have fought wars. We have had people die in the military to fight it, and now we've got people running for office.
And people supporting.
And American, good, otherwise decent American people
Right.
that don't know any better that are supporting these idiots.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up a point. A lot of people right now in the pro-life movement are kind of sitting back and relaxing. Now is not the time to,
No.
just because a lot of people think that we have, a pro-life president in office, they're sitting back relaxing saying, oh, a lot of, pro-life laws are getting passed. Well, reality check, we still have a lot more work to do, and abortion is going to be a key issue in the upcoming election.
Yep.
So now is not the time to be relaxing. Now is the time to be pushing even harder.
Yep, that's right. And we do see a lot of people relaxing. We're seeing it in our donations. We're
Yeah.
seeing it in all sorts of things. This is not the right time to do that.
No.
We need to keep the pedal to the metal, so to speak. Before we go, you're talking a minute ago about how you don't like the government taking money out of your paycheck anyway.
Yeah.
And then you really don't like them taking it to pay for somebody's abortion. I'll leave with a little funny story. I've told you this before. Sheila, when she was little, she always would work. We'd give her little jobs around the place, to cleaning up or assembling products back in the mailroom or something. And we'd just pay her. Sometimes Tulane and I would just pay her out of our pocket. We'd pay her $5 an hour or something like that. Well, anyway, there came a time when Sheila was actually going to work here on a part-time basis, and so she was actually then technically an employee. And so we were going to actually give her a paycheck and take taxes out and all the things that you do, Social Security and all that. And it was so funny. The first time Sheila got a paycheck, she comes storming in my office, hands on hips like she always is, all bent out of shape. She had figured out how many hours she had worked that week, and she'd multiplied it times 5 or whatever, $7, $8, whatever it was we were paying her. And she figured out how much money she had coming. She was smart enough to know, I've got $42 coming. Well, she gets a check for like $34 because we took stuff out. And she came into my office like I was cheating her. And she says, she holds that check up. She says, "What is this?" I said, "Well, that's your check." But I worked this many hours, and I didn't get that much money. And I said, yes, that's because we had to take taxes out of it. Taxes? What for? And so I tried to explain to her, that, well, you have the police and you have roads and you have all this stuff that your taxes go to pay for. And she didn't like that too much, but she understood that. And I said, and then just to giggle a little bit, I said, and plus, there's a lot of people in this world who don't want to work, and you have to give them money so that they don't have to work.
Yeah, it's
She
just a
lost
shock. It's a shocker, isn't it?
But I'll never forget her coming to my office. What is this? Your paycheck.
Explain to me why you've taken money from me.
Welcome to the real world, Sheila.
So not only do a lot of people not like taxes, but I would say that pro-lifers need to be bent out of shape over paying for abortions themselves.
Yep, and remind your neighbors that
Yeah.
this degenerate Biden, who's now apparently leading in the Democratic race and may or may not, but they're all the same.
Yeah.
They're all the same collection of moral defectives.
I don't see how he's leading. He's creepy. I bought this T-shirt for a friend. It's Joe Biden behind America, sniffing America. And it says, you can't see it, but I'm behind you, America. Yeah, you're behind. Creepy Joe is really behind you.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, go to YouTube and type in creepy Joe Biden. And the man's a pedophile. And he's a
just-
sexual deviant.
He's perverted
There's
across the
something
board.
wrong with this guy. There's something seriously wrong with this.
And this is their Democrat shining knight in armor.
Right. Anyway, y'all got anything else?
Nothing else.
That's it? You're done?
We're done. Just give us your show ideas.
Yep.
Send them email or call or however you want to do
signal.
it. Yep. We'd love to hear what's on your mind and if you want to see something in particular here on the show.
Yep. If you see something you think needs addressing and we're not addressing it, let us know or let Renee know and she'll pass it along.
And if we use your ideas, you will get this nifty mug that I like drinking coffee out of.
Nifty.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really
Nifty?
good. Yeah, because this is a really good mug because it's thick and it's big, so you can get a lot of coffee in it.
Isn't nifty a word that went out about 40 years before Sheila was born?
Hey, I say
know.
those darn hooligans, and I use old timer language.
Yeah, you're an old soul, Sheila. Is that it, girls? We're done?
It. We're done.
Yeah.
All right. Until next Tuesday, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win because winning is how the killing stops. We'll see you next week.